Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit. We continue our series of daily morning meditations where we generally look at one or another of the lessons that are assigned for morning or evening prayer, what is known as the daily office lectionary. And for this Saturday morning, I thought we'd take a look at that lesson that's assigned for Ecclesiastes as the part of evening prayers lessons. And of course, Ecclesiastes is one of the books that we talk about those three different philosophies of life that are contained in the book of Job, which is that life is suffering, or the Song of Songs, that life is love, or Ecclesiastes, that everything's vanity. And it kind of gives us different angles and different views. Now, the author of Ecclesiastes at this point is starting to move forward and talk about our relationship with God, and especially when it comes to making a vow. So chapter 5, beginning at verse 1. Keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God, and be more ready to hear than to give, the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth, therefore let thy words be few. For a dream cometh through the multitude of business, and a fool's voice is known by the multitude of words. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it, for he hath no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. Better is it that thou shouldest not vow, than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin, neither say thou before the angel that it was an error. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice, and destroy the work of thine hands? For the multitude of dreams and many words, there are also divers vanities. But fear thou God. Now, I think most of us in the world think about making vows to God, but think about all the ways in which we've made promises to God. And times perhaps in our life of prayer where we've made it, oh God, if you just get me out of this situation, then this will happen. Or God, if you allow this to happen, then I'll do this. And then time goes on and either it happens or it doesn't happen and we forget all about that. I'll do this or I'll do that. And I know there were lots of times in my life, especially when I was really away from the practice of the faith, that the only time I prayed was out of desperation in situations. And usually once the situation was over, I'd forgotten all about my promise to God that I would start going to church again or I'd start praying regularly again. However, I did make one vow to God that stuck. And I've told the story before, but it was on January 18th, 1989, the day after I attended my first AA meeting. And I was really in a bad space. I was pretty shaky, and I really needed to figure out this sobriety thing. And when I read the 12 steps, I got to step number 3, turned our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And at that moment, I got on my knees and I said to God, if you will help me to stay sober, I will do whatever it is you want me to do. And then I got up and I poured the last bottle of liquor down the sink and my hands stopped shaking. And I knew exactly what it was that God was calling me to do. I'd known since I was 7, and here it is, folks. Right? And God did both help me to stay sober by God's grace. I am still sober today. And it really is all by God's grace. And the fellowship of a bunch of people who've helped me to get there. But also, of course, I have been able to keep that vow, that promise that I would do whatever he'd want me to do. And I knew that this was it right here. So we don't always get those big chances and the big changes. But as the author of Ecclesiastes says, it's better that you should not vow than you should vow and not pay. Right? So let's let our yes be yes and our no be no, and go with it at that. Today's Saturday. Tomorrow we gather for worship, and so I do hope that you have marked that out on your calendar, that you're going to be in church to glorify God. 7:30 morning prayer, 8 o'clock Holy Communion, 10 o'clock Holy Communion, and 5:30 evening prayer with the opportunity to receive communion. Pick a service or two and plan on joining us. And I hope you have a day that is full of blessings.